let's talk about some domestic issues now. This
Sure.
week you were in Georgia. You were there to talk about and promote the One Big Beautiful Bill. And
Yep.
it also comes in the same week that Texas Republicans approved 5 new Republican seats. So
Sure.
they expanded the map for Republicans in their state. If President Trump's agenda is so popular, why do Republicans need to add additional seats to the map?
Well, first of all, Kristen, you have to ask yourself, why have Democrats gerrymandered their states aggressively over the past 10 to 20 years? If you look, for example, at the popular vote in a lot of these states, and Massachusetts, where 32% of the residents of Massachusetts voted for Republicans, 0 Republican federal representatives. So we're not trying to all we're doing, frankly, is trying to make the situation a little bit more fair on a national scale. The Democrats have gerrymandered their states really aggressively. We think there are opportunities to push back against that, and that's really all we're doing.
And yet, Mr. Vice President, you were able to win the House and the Senate in 2024. Why can't you do it again without adding additional
But we had
seats?
But this is a very important question, Kristen. We had way fewer House seats than we should have. 1, if the Democrats hadn't aggressively gerrymandered, and 2, if illegal aliens weren't counted in the census for purposes of apportioning congressional seats. The best estimates I've seen is that in California, for example, has 5 additional congressional seats than it should have because they count illegal aliens for the purpose of apportioning representatives. Meanwhile, Ohio, my home state, lost a representative. We're literally losing representatives for American citizens in order to give congressional representation to illegal aliens. Republicans are trying to balance out the scales a little bit for basic fairness and for the integrity of our democracy, which the president cares about as much as anybody in the country.
But of course, people who are here and who are not documented are not eligible to vote. But
They're not eligible to vote, but they do go in the congressional apportionment. That's why California has so many more seats, is because they count illegal aliens. So even though they don't vote, well, some of them actually do vote, but hopefully most of them don't, they end up getting congressional representation that ought by right go to American citizens.
I know we're almost out of time, so 2 more quick ones. The administration deployed the National Guard to D.C. to crack down on crime. You visited with them this week.
Yep.
At least 6 Republican states are sending in their own National Guard troops as reinforcement. But many of these states have cities that actually have crime rates that are worse than Washington, D.C. So why aren't these states sending National Guard troops into their own states to deal with the crime issue?
Well, look,
and is that a possibility?
Well, look, if the local governors want to make that determination, we'll leave it up to the local governors. But what we have control over is the nation's capital. And if you look, for example, at the murder rate in D.C., it rivals some of the worst cities, the most violent cities anywhere in the world. That's a disgrace for our nation. That's a disgrace for the residents who live in D.C., who just want to take their kids to a park or walk down Union Station or take their family out for a bite to eat without being accosted by a vagrant or a violent criminal.
Crime has dropped
They
over
should have that
20%,
right.
though, in the nation's capital.
Crime has dropped over 35% in the nation's capital in 10 days because of what Donald J. Trump has done.
So is that mission accomplished?
I think that there's so much more that we could do. Absolutely not. It's not mission accomplished. When you make such big progress in a matter of a week and a half, I think that you step on the gas and try to make D.C. even more safe. And here's the thing, Kristen, we don't have to live like this. My message to my fellow citizens here in D.C. or all across the country would be that allowing vagrants and armed robberies to take over your city, that's a policy choice. What President Trump is showing is that if you just empower local law enforcement to arrest and prosecute the bad guys, we can take back American streets. You, as a young family, whatever the color of your skin, you should not have to cross the street because there's a crazy person yelling at your children on the other side. You should not be worried that if you take your son out for a meal at 8 o'clock in the evening, an armed robber is going to assault your family. This is a policy choice to allow lawlessness to overrun our cities. The president has made a different policy choice. And I think what he's showing the entire American community is that we don't have to live like this. And that's the biggest thing that will come out of D.C. It matters a lot for D.C., but I think it matters more for the whole country to see that if we just make better choices, we can take back our cities.
I'm getting a wrap, so final question for
Please.
you, Mr. Vice President. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Elon Musk is halting his plans to create a new political party, in part because he wants to support you for president in 2028. I know you've been asked about this. You said you have not discussed this with him.
That's right.
But do you see yourself as the apparent future of the MAGA movement?
No, I see myself as a vice president who's trying to do a good job for the American people, Kristen. And if I do a good job and if the president continues to be successful, as I know that he will be, the politics will take care of itself. We can cross that bridge when we come to it. But we just had an election 7 months ago. I think I'm probably like most Americans, and I'm already sick of talking about politics after a big general election. The next election that matters is not the election of 2028, it's 2026. So before we talk about anything 3.5 years down the road, let's take a break from politics, focus on governing the country, and when we return to politics, it's going to be to focus on those midterm elections.
Have you had any conversations with President Trump about him passing the torch on to you?
As you know, the president talks about everything, and if it's in the news, the president and I have certainly discussed it, but I think the president is just focused on doing a good job for the American people. He wants me to be focused on doing a good job for the American people. That's what I'll keep on doing. And again, if we take care of business, if America is safer, if it's more prosperous, if young people can afford to buy a home, if we actually bring peace to all of these regions of the world, which we've made great progress in doing, the politics will take care of itself.